Developers censoring their game years after release was never going to turn out well for them. They always should have known that they were going to face major backlash over this decision, and that's why they initially tried to frame it as it only being a small bit of censorship. It wasn't that serious when realistically it is to people, and now the scores of their game are absolutely tanking. I have a few different things to show off, but before I get into the topic, if you enjoy the content I create, check out the links in the description, join the community in my live streams, and consider supporting through Patreon or YouTube memberships. Now, people generally liked Ready or Not. People were initially very happy with the product they got. It was in early access. That period went well. It fully released in 2023. And then years later, right, it's got pretty good scores. Most people are talking positively about it. And then they dropped the announcement that they are censoring the PC version for console release so that it can meet the console guidelines, which is insane. And now they're facing major backlash over it and the scores are tanking. So I have covered this in another video, it will be linked down below, but the highly regarded tactical shooter Ready or Not is now facing an intense anti-censorship backlash after the developer, Void Interactive, confirmed that sweeping content changes are being rolled out retroactively. That means it's not just for the upcoming console release, but also for existing PC players who purchased the game years ago. I think that this should be illegal. You should not be able to alter the state of your game years after the fact mandatorily. If they wanted to also allow people to download this patch if they wanted to, that would be one thing, but forcing it upon people is crazy, and it just goes to show that these developers are lazy. They talk about how it would take up so much time and effort. It is your job to make a game, and it is your job to respect your customers. They have been able to consume this content on Steam for years. That means you should not be altering the version on Steam years later. It says, though originally released in early access and officially launched in 2023, Ready or Not quickly gained a strong following for its gritty realism, challenging gameplay, and unflinching depiction of tactical SWAT scenarios. This was a game a lot of people were initially excited for. Now, for me personally, a major problem that I ended up having was the fact that they ended up altering some of the content because Kotaku complained about it. As you can see here in this trash can, there's a box of red pills, but Kotaku author Ethan Gotch explained his interpretation of these jokes and links to a theory that could be a reference to an apparently unrelated racist meme. It was Pepe the Frog, of course, and the insinuation that these in-game assets could be related to racist memes was a concerning issue, and as a result, Void Interactive issued a lengthy statement in response, and then they ultimately removed these items, and that right there was a major turnoff for me and a lot of other people. And then they come out and they announce this major sweeping change just a few days ago. My video is actually linked in this article. The article and the video will be linked down below in case you're interested. But Void Interactive attempted to frame the changes as minimal in their developer briefing on Steam, referring to limited changes needing for console certification standards. But buried within the announcement were confirmations that these changes apply globally, not just to console builds. At least if it was only on console, you didn't have to purchase it if you didn't want to support the censorship. But now, even if you purchased it 3 years ago, it's not like they're going to issue you refunds. It's not like you can really voice your opinion in a way that they're going to listen to. You can't vote with your wallet anymore. I guess you technically don't have to purchase the console version, but if you're already on the PC version and you've already monetarily supported them, it's not like you can actually take those funds away from them. And now, if we take a look over on Steam, things are not going well because after this announcement, PC players are fighting back. As you can see for the overall reviews, things were generally positive. In December 2023, they did receive an uptick of negatives, but for the most part, it has been pretty consistently positive until now, where we are seeing the recent reviews fall into the mixed category, and they're going to be in the negative soon, judging by how quickly these negatives are being added. I mean, there are so many people who were upset. I mean, in just a couple of days, right? It started at 45 negatives, and then 291 negatives, 628 negatives, 686 negatives, and then 695. So that is just today is the $6.95. I'm curious to see how many thousands upon thousands of negatives are going to be added. But even if you look at the recently posted reviews, there's so many people saying, they're just really upset that this happened. And while the game is really good, the censorship, of course, is really bad. This individual said, I would have recommended to my friends and family, especially when they announced that they're adding it to all platforms. But now with this announcement of them censoring the game due to Kotaku complaining about the game having too much blood and gore and the red pills, that the devs have to censor the game on all platforms instead of making a separate version and then making an excuse of, oh, it's too hard to make a separate version. It shows the developers are lazy and never cared about their players and only care about the woke mafia. And I do understand, on one hand, they are trying to appease platform holders, but at the same time, they could have stood their ground and said, listen, you allow Call of Duty on your platforms. I mean, Microsoft literally owns Call of Duty. That is a realistic shooter with these like gory and harsh depictions. You allow games like The Witcher that has nudity. So why is it that our game is being unfairly targeted? They could have stood their ground. They could have made these points, and people would have praised them for that. They would have gained so many more sales, especially on PC where it wasn't censored, if they had just tried to stand up for their players, but they didn't. I get that companies want their game to release on as many platforms as possible, but on the flip side, sometimes you have to have a backbone. Sometimes you have to stand up for yourself and your product. And let's be honest, even if you do censor a little bit of gore, a little bit of nudity, it's still an extremely graphic game. Are you really positive that these platform holders are going to still be happy? Like, it really grinds my gears that they're doing this instead of actually saying, no, we are going to defend the state of our product. But even years ago with Kotaku, they didn't. So I can't say I'm surprised, just that I'm really fucking disappointed. It's so sad to see this happening time and time again, especially for a game that people did generally like. I personally didn't purchase it because of like the whole Kotaku situation. It was a really big turnoff for me. I had said maybe like one day I would give it a shot, but I just was really unimpressed with the developers, and I'm really glad that I actually hadn't supported them at this point. And that sucks because it does look like a really solid game, but they've made their stance clear, and it's not a stance I agree with. People are saying, though, this ain't the way to go about it, bro. Censorship in an overpriced indie game about swatting criminals? Unbelievable. Developers take away from the community. I wish I could take my money back. At least you can, speak up and leave a review, whether that is positive or negative, with your thoughts and opinions. And there are some people who are leaving more positive reviews who are trying to say, like, it's still a good game, you guys are overreacting. But of course, as I always say, any censorship is too much censorship. I completely understand you might be able to personally look past a bit of cleavage being covered up. Oh, instead of it being 75% blood when someone's killed, it's 65% blood. I know that not everything seems like that big of a deal, but the problem is that when you give companies an inch, they'll take a mile. Oh, well, right now it's just a little bit of cleavage or a little bit of thigh or a little bit of blood. But what happens when their next game comes out and the bullets can't look like bullets? What happens when we get to the level of Chinese gaming and blood is not allowed to be red? Blood has to be bright neon green or bright purple. What happens when those bullets end up not actually having an animation and the person just falls to the ground instead of die? See, it's a very slippery slope. And so while I don't think in the United States we would ever really reach that point, if developers feel like they can censor something because it can reach a bigger, wider global audience, or it can reach a new audience of people because they're younger and they can get a lower age rating, well, you know that companies will do it. And this is why I sit here so much and I talk about so many of these situations. And it sucks to see this happen, right? Because I want people to be able to enjoy their games. And if you bought this and you played it and you love it, I'm really happy for you. And I hope that you still continue to enjoy it. But ultimately, this is just a situation that needs to be called out. And that's why I think it is so important to, sit on this channel and actually talk about these situations, because not a lot of people were even talking about this. I've seen so many comments on my videos saying, wow, I haven't heard anything about this game. I didn't even look at the patch notes with the latest update. I just downloaded it. So, I mean, it is what it is, and it's not good. Right now, their game is getting absolutely wrecked over on Steam. The recent reviews are tanking. They're at mixed right now. I think that they're going to be going into the negative soon. Of course, their Steam forums are still blowing up with people talking about how disappointed they are and how they would love to get their money back and how they just want their voices to be heard. So I will be keeping my eye on this situation, but for now, that's all that I really had to discuss in this video. Let everyone know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this, give it a like, and if you didn't, give it a dislike. I appreciate your support either way, but I'll talk to you all again in the next video really soon.